many junglers banned. Maybe we can finally get a spicy jungle matchup. One of them is probably going to pick Sejuani, but then you're going to have to dive a little deeper, and that could be really exciting.
That is going to be nice, actually, especially in the new patch where there's going to be a few, maybe, counter-jungling options. I say that, Jarvan is hovered, so now I'm a little scared in terms of just still perma-ganking. But wanted to highlight the Lee Sin and Gragas. Gragas has just been, oh! The lovers duo in the bot lane in Xayah and Rakan, that's just been a staple for both teams. So 100 Thieves' drafting strategy has been get Xayah, Rakan, Gragas a three-way flex, but that's been banned. So it feels like TSM recognizes what has been a really strong drafting strength for 100 Thieves and took it away.
So Broxah, let me ask you this. As somebody who has a ton of pro play experience, how do you feel about in the draft of taking away picks, specifically to deny them from your opponents, like what Raz is talking about with the Xayah and Rakan here?
I think it's generally a smart thing to do. Like, I think there's two ways you can draft. Either you take away like the strong picks in the current meta, or you try to deny something from the opponents, right? And I think for the Xayah Rakan, it's, you know, not something we see too often, just slamming it 1-2 like this. But I kind of respect the confidence. Okay. On the other hand, I'm a little surprised seeing Wukong being locked in here for 100 Thieves. Now the Sejuani is open, and traditionally it's the next jungler in line. But at the same time, we saw Blabber do some work on Wukong earlier, so maybe they just got inspired from him.
Yeah, sure. Closer also seems like he's probably more wanting to play Wukong than Sejuani. Just like when you think of Closer, you think of Lee Sin, you think of Viego. You don't really think of this Sejuani as much. So they'll take the Wukong, they'll take the Sion for the front line there for Tenacity, and it is Sejuani locked in for TSM, last pick of the first half. Yeah,
and it makes me wonder what Solo's pick is going to be here, because he has counter pick advantage, he has the Sejuani. Ordinarily, teams with this will try and be a little bit more creative. Of course, in this case, he knows that he's going up against the Sion, but the Fiora would usually be the matchup, right? You pick Fiora, you also have the Sejuani, you can play towards topside. That is just not how TSM plays the game. So you kind of expect it to be perhaps a Cho'Gath, something that is still sturdy so they can play a front to back and they keep the player comfort.
And it's also worth pointing out that if we look at the previous weeks of LCS, Sion has been 8-0. He hasn't lost a game.
Oh, there it is.
So this champion has been monstrous. And now Solo is going to have to prove to us that he can actually handle it.
Well, they're banning out Thresh first because remember, we don't have symmetrical drafts here in the first half. So we are going to see different roles banned out in the second. They're saying, all right, the Annie, we're thinking that's mid. We're going to ban another support away instead. The Ezreal also banned out. 100 Thieves still has to pick that AD carry as well, and TSM does not want DoubleLift on something super safe. They've already denied the Xayah, like you mentioned earlier, Raz, and now Ezreal's taken off with a ban.
I really like those two bans, by the way, because you're right, it actually makes it so if you take out the Thresh, you don't have access to Aphelios Thresh, and so it's going to be Aphelios with, you know, any melee support, probably a Nautilus or a Leona, but it makes Aphelios positioning a lot more difficult, or the Karma Ezreal that makes that bot lane 2v2 really difficult. So I'm expecting something wonky, so maybe we get something spicy that you were looking for, Broxah.
Well, speaking of wonky, I'm kind of hoping this Annie is going to be support, to be honest. Because looking at 100 Thieves' games, their strongest lane in the early game has been DoubleLift and Busio. And I think with the Annie, with the Closer and Wukong, it could be a lot similar to the first game of the day where, you know, just play around the bot lane, get DoubleLift rolling and set him up for success. Well, now, a little bit of a different style. We're getting the scaling.
We've got some scaling. We've got Jinx locked in for DoubleLift. And now we get to answer that question. Where is Annie going? Is it Bjergsen Annie mid? No, it's Renata Glasc locked in for Busio. This is going to give DoubleLift that opportunity to get excited, get those resets. Renata loves working with reset champions because of the way that Bailout enables them to get their reset, come back to life, and take over the fight.
That makes sense to me, and it just makes me love seeing the engaged support metas again. Like, this is something that I saw from Busio when he was in Academy prior.
So Aurelion Sol!
And Aurelion Sol's big pick too!
Baby.
So team fighting is the MO. So from 100 Thieves side, I like the space that's being created with Annie Tibbers always being threatened, Wukong and Sion in the front line. It makes a lot of sense to me. It's just going to be on DoubleLift to A, position correctly, have flashes ready for fight, so he's not going to obviously have the fear of a Rakan engage that's looming over him.
I think in a lot of ways, you know, these team comps are pretty similar. It's a traditional comp in League of Legends with a tank top, a strong bot lane, we have scaling mid laners, and it's really going to come down to the junglers setting up bot lane for success, because whoever gets the AD carry rolling is going to be able to kill the enemy front line.
Do you have a composition that you favor over the... It's 100 Thieves and TSM both tied at 7 and 8 coming into Super Week. Traditionally, 9 is the magic number to make it into playoffs, and they both know they both need this win.
You know, I just thought of something. When I played for Team Liquid, we were in a situation a little bit similar to what we see 100 Thieves in right now. The pressure is on. We need them to perform. We need someone to step up and bring it home. Back then, DoubleLift, you know, he pulled me aside and he told me, Broxah, I want you to play around my lane. I'm gonna carry, but you need to camp bot lane like never before.
Okay.
And this is what I'm hoping he's telling Closer as well right now. Because if this Renata Jinx lane gets rolling, he can carry so hard versus these champions. Tenacity doesn't need attention. He's a Sion. Like, you know, he's gonna be more than fine.
Be fine.
Sure, maybe they can look mid lane, but Aurelion is probably gonna sit back and play safe. So, DoubleLift needs to be ahead.
I also like DoubleLift on the Jinx because as the game goes on, we know the Rockets have the range to potentially be able to hurt this Aurelion Sol before he can just start breathing that nasty % HP damage all over everybody. So I'm with you, man. I want to see them focus bot lane. I want to see them help out DoubleLift. Right now, they're going to steal away the enemy blue buff. Bugi will at least be able to collect the wolves and hit level 2 before 100 Thieves can move up and steal those. But you're going to see the immediate TP top from Tenacity be interrupted. Nicely done from Chime.
Yeah, I had vision on him. It's going to be pretty rough for Tenacity. He's going to have a long walk towards the top side of the map, but at least that goal that you were talking about, Broxah, is the reality. Like, they invaded bot side, so now it's going to be really difficult for Sejuani to A, get the experience that's required, but B, to be able to actually help out in any way, shape, or form. And also, a small thing that I wanted to put out there is the Renata Glasc team fights. Like, how difficult is it going to be for TSM to engage if 100 Thieves have position on an objective with a Renata ulti there? It's just going to make Rakan's life hard.
I have to say, like, the response from TSM was pretty much as perfect as it could be here. They don't have a chance of fighting back level 1 now that Sion joins. But Bugi instantly does the wolves with help of bot lane, Chime stops the Sion TP, and all of a sudden, like for the jungler, you're supposed to get a lead from this.
Yeah.
But in fact, nothing's gonna happen. Like in a few minutes from now, they're gonna be even. And all of a sudden, top lane is struggling as a result.
That's 2 games in a row where we've seen a team try to get aggressive at level 1, succeed in it, but then their opponent's response has been good enough. And I think that this just shows everybody's coming into Super Week ready to go. They all know both what they want to do, and they're also thinking, all right, if there's a time for a curveball, it's this week.
100%. When I see new strategies, earlier on in the split, that's when things get messy and you can just lose 5 minutes into the game, right? Because the communication within your team is tough. Com's gonna look perfect for 100 Thieves. TP comes right in.
But they do not overcommit early. They want to make sure they can back it up. DoubleLift cleansing, but then still getting caught, has to flash away. Now Closer could be in a little bit of trouble. It's first blood back over to TSM. It's going to be traded 1-for-1. But can Closer get away? TSM has a 4v1 dog pile. Closer wants to reset, but he won't get it. The bailout ain't enough. And TSM gets 2-for-1.
That is a little bit of a rough one for 100 Thieves, going very, very aggressive, overextending a tad. Not the greatest situation for them, getting a kill on the jungler, while TSM got it on the 2 carries. Aurelion is going to be very happy because, like I said, going into the game, he's very slow. He's going to need a lot of time to go online. This is going to speed up the process.
And take a look at this. This is what's difficult here. Bjergsen has to flash away. He's trying to help out with the dive, but then immediately meets Bugi and Maple. So you were just talking about perfect responses, defensive responses. This was another one. I was wondering at first, worried because when Solo TPs in to defend, he's going to lose a lot top lane. But TSM makes it worthwhile with the roam from Aurelion Sol, gets the kill, and it's looking great for TSM.
And this is all a byproduct of what happened level 1 as well. I'm sure that this level 1 is something 100 Thieves have been talking about and practicing a lot, especially going into important weeks like this one. Like, you wouldn't believe how many hours pro players can spend just talking about level 1s. But, you know, TSM surprised them. They reacted perfectly, got TP advantage, and with it, now, you know, all of a sudden they have a very solid lead.
Yeah, and take a look at this, Broxah. So Solo had to stay mid just because they didn't want to drop a wave with a swap between Solo and Maple, who was covering top lane, but immediately looking bot lane for a potential dive. So seems like 100 Thieves is played this one out well, but TSM is on it right now. Couldn't find the dive, but decided with a stacked wave that they're going to go for the dragon instead.
And I think generally with these two comps, there's a limit to how much craziness we're going to see in the early game. Like, there's not too much spice in the draft.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very centered around the Dragon. Now next up is going to be the Herald, of course. So what we need to keep an eye on in these next couple of minutes is how they get the setup. Can one of the bot lanes get the push out in time for the support, or potentially support and AD carry to move up? And, you know, will they be able to use that to an advantage and secure Herald from it?
And I want to see them make the decision nice and early on whether or not they want to be there for that fight. They know there's nothing on the other side of the map that they're going to handshake trade for with the Dragon already being taken. So if you're not going to go for the fight, keep your AD carry bottom. Farm it out a little bit, grab some plates or something. But right now it is TSM still with a very modest gold lead. Huge difference in bot lane farm right now. That's one of the biggest things standing out to me. DoubleLift had 24 when Turtle had 9, and that lead is persistent.
That's the one thing that I missed actually throughout the entire play, was just the fact that WildTurtle wasn't able to catch the wave. Solo though,
getting jumped on by Bjergsen here. A lot of damage coming out from Bjerg. He just barely misses getting the kill on Solo.
it's really tough there. I wonder if Solo is going to be swapping with Maple at any point, but it was looking good for him up until that. Still, my eyes are going to be on WildTurtle. Here is another potential dive from Closer.
DoubleLift trying to poke him down. Chime has used the grand entrance, so now Closer feels confident jumping in. They're going to lock up 2. WildTurtle manages to outplay it and take him low enough to force 100 Thieves back.
Thankfully, Busio was tanking tower at that moment. If it had been Closer, disaster there. But the pressure is consistent. And WildTurtle is still struggling a little bit, but the fact that he's still standing and the resources have gone to Maple with the kill. Oh, looking for a pick.
Flash grand entrance from Chime, but Turtle is so far away they can't follow it up. That seemed a little bit too much there.
That was probably some emotions after the dive.
Yeah.
You know, he got angry. He wanted to fight back and show them who was the boss, but, you know, WildTurtle wasn't able to follow up. Now, it's worth pointing out that 100 Thieves are going to have TP advantage here for the Herald. And, you know, they could potentially look at using it for, you know, sending Sion down to the bot lane.
Yeah.
With do a little swap, because Jinx and Renata desperately need space as well.
Yeah, and Turtle's coming balling.
Oh, he lands the meteor, and DoubleLift and Busio have to run, but DoubleLift just gets shredded by Aurelion Sol. Maple's on the board, and TSM are feeling good. They are targeting DoubleLift. It's what you were talking about, Broxah. You're saying DoubleLift wants to help. He wants to be able to carry. Well, right now, TSM wants to put him in the dirt.
Yeah, boys, TSM is just on something today. That was insane. So even though the initial attempt to pick off DoubleLift didn't work out, they still had a stacking cannon minion wave that was coming in through, and so DoubleLift had to stay there. And as we look through the replay, guess who's clued into all of that? It's Maple. And so Busio and DoubleLift kind of recognize that a little bit too late.
And this is exactly what you want to avoid when playing against Aurelion Sol. You have the Annie, who's power spiking pretty hard at level 6. But now, because of the mistakes in the early game, Annie is not the one making plays, and the game is going in the wrong direction. What we see, though, is exactly what I was talking about before. Sion has TP, so they sent him down to bot lane. Solo will be unable to match, and he's going to lose CS while Tenacity pushes in. And admittedly now, with, you know, 100 Thieves position, even though they swapped, they find themselves in a very awkward position, because now that they're so far behind, they can't even walk up to the wave.
Yeah, what would you do here if you were in 100 Thieves' shoes? Because I can agree, this is a pretty difficult spot for DoubleLift and Busio to be in if they're topside.
So I think the play would have been great if they had done it preemptively, like before they died.
Yeah.
Because then you potentially drop a wave, you get tempo, you can get control of the river. But here, because they died, TSM was able to base, match them. TSM are stronger, set up full control, and, you know, I'm pretty sure at that point 100 Thieves regrets even swapping to begin with. It would have been better to keep DoubleLift bot lane just hitting plates.
Makes sense to me.
Well, DoubleLift still has that farm advantage over WildTurtle of about a couple of waves with both of our bot lane duos swapped into the top side now. We're still seeing the solo lanes a little bit mismatched. Maple roam down to bottom to deal with Tenacity pushing there on the Sion. Again, Aurelion Sol's job right now, it's just what Broxah was talking about earlier. He's slow to come online, but once he gets there, he is a powerhouse. Stack up the Stardust, and especially if you can get the upgraded ultimate, the Skies Descend, for one of these big objective fights, it can change the game.
Yeah, this was supposed to be the hardest point of the game for Aurelion Sol. We had talked about how difficult it was going to be for the first 10 minutes and how I thought that 100 Thieves was going to be an advantage because of that, but because of how Maple had responded so well to the attempted dive bot, to his own dive, now he's 2 kills in, is pretty much equal to Annie CS. And I usually at this point, you're going to be at 100 stacks. So you are now set up to succeed on TSM side.
And it's going to be very, very difficult for 100 Thieves to do anything in this fight. Dragon is really important. You don't want TSM to get the second one.
Yeah.
But if you look at, TSM's front line, Sejuani, Ksante, they're so tanky, while Closer still doesn't have any health, any resistances.
Yeah.
And sure, you have a lot of burst with Jinx and Annie, but can you really burst through those tanks? Probably not yet.
Probably not. This is something, though, as we look into the screen, is that both top laners have actually rotated for this fight.
Oh, baby.
So something is going to happen. It's a 1k goal lead for TSM, so they feel really confident here. And they have positioning, so want to see how 100 Thieves can fight this.
They have positioning, but remember the Scuttle Crab is in the possession of 100 Thieves here. That is vision that cannot be removed. The extra speed buff might play a role here. Tenacity's going to step up and be the front line for 100, but it's Bjergsen who just gets caught. The falling star guarantees it, and Maple goes on a killing spree. TSM has killed the enemy mid laner, and with Bjergsen out of the picture, they feel confident to continue working towards the Drake. Solo's going to keep on frontlining as Tenacity tries to create some space for his team to move up and move in. TSM had to spend a few ultis there getting the kill onto Bjergsen, so now what can they do? They still want to stick around, they still want to fight for the Drake, they know they got a 5v4, but they got to be careful. 100 Thieves is going to have their mid laner ready to TP back here soon. Solo's taken low, but he won't die yet. Closer goes in, and he takes down the enemy top laner when he gets away with it. 100 Thieves just stole that whole fight. They're gonna grab themselves the Drake. They're gonna grab themselves an extra kill. Yes, Closer will die for it, but when you're behind, you'll take those.
Yeah, that was pretty criminal. What we saw there from 100 Thieves, that was a heist and a half. So for me, I was just looking at Bugi's positioning because at the start of the fight, beautiful. He was in fog, they had control ward in a stop bush, so 100 Thieves didn't know where he was, but they thought he was pretty far back there. No, gets the pick on Bjergsen, as we'll see from the very beginning. So this is what I was talking about here. They just had no idea where Bugi was. And so you look at this, beautiful.
Yeah, I think stuff like this is really impressive. Just making sure the one will engage is actually split from the team, because they expect Sejuani to be somewhere with the rest of the pack. All of a sudden, Bjergsen walks up. Obviously, he shouldn't be the one frontlining. Like, he was a little overextended, but someone would have been caught off guard either way. Now, I was a little worried about 100 Thieves actually staying here, because obviously now they don't really have an advantage. They're man down, but they're so confidently walking up, and TSM just have a hard time finding a good engage. Until eventually, well, this happens. Closer goes in, looks for the Sion, and everything works out.
The difference, I think, in the back half of that fight had to have been the ultis. Closer still had Cyclone, DoubleLift still had Super Mega Death Rocket, so even though they were down a man, they still had most of their big guns ready to fire. Bjergsen did not have an unleashed teleport, so he couldn't just teleport right back into the fight. That is an important thing to note. But 100 Thieves knew that he would at least be able to come to the mid lane turret and try to join up as TSM looks for Bjergsen again. They won't get him, but they'll get his flash.
100%. And another thing, too, is just the focus of the fight. Because Bugi was still sitting in the pit for a little bit. So he was trying, his focus was just, when it gets low enough, I'm just here to smite steal. So the main brunt of face tanking was on Solo, and Solo got caught. Meanwhile, 100 Thieves side was just looking for the fight. With Bjergsen down, I thought that they did a great job in focus in that one.
Yeah, it's really important to be coordinated as well. Just make sure that you're all focused on the same thing. Because like you said, Bugi, he was kind of sitting on the Drake, still looking for that objective. And they didn't really know how to start the fight, and that's essentially what went wrong. This is what we need to see from them next time. Coordination. Do the same thing.
Yeah.
Be on the same page.
We'll say, though, just after that, being able to find the pick onto Closer, and there's a little bit that we missed after the replay, but there is still a 2k gold lead now for TSM. So from a gold point, TSM is still really confident. Yeah. From a compositional standpoint, Aurelion Sol is active, so I really am interested to see how much resources they're going to pull in Aurelion Sol, get Rylai's Crystal Scepter, and they will be willing to take the fights.
And that Rod of Ages has 4 stacks at 14.5 minutes. Means right about the 20-minute mark, right about the time Baron spawns,
yeah.
Aurelion is going to be fully charged with the Rod of Ages. He's going to get the extra bonuses from doing that. His tier is also stacking up about 216 out of the 360 that he needs to have that fully evolved. Leandri's Anguish finally completed there on Bjergsen, that mythic, much later than his counterpart because of the kill differences.
Yeah, and another thing to point out is at that annoying stage of the game where the cooldown is way too low on the ulti from Aurelion Sol, and he has his enhanced Sky's Descent active.
Yeah.
So the next fight's just going to be difficult for 100 Thieves. They have to be creative if they want to be able to fight that out.
And now, speaking of, the fight is about to happen. They're starting up the Rift Herald now. It's really, really difficult if you look at the minimap for 100 Thieves to walk in. Like, TSM just has full control. They have a lot of ways of hard engaging. And I think 100 Thieves makes the right decision, not even going for it. You can also see on your screen, there's 1.5 minutes for Drake. That needs to be the next focus point. That is where you can set up a good fight. Because now, TSM used up most of their tempo and vision on the top side. It's not as easy for them to get the same control around Dragon.
Fully agreed. I actually would have expected DoubleLift to be bot lane throughout that, so he can actually get access to gold through minion waves, but also the turret plays as well. I mean, just the turret. Past 14 minutes.
Yep.
But he's there mid lane just in case they do try and fight for second turret, so they're there to defend.
The Herald immediately used to force down that tier 1 turret mid. This is also important with a neutral objective fight coming up, because if you win the fight and you're chasing them away, that's one less bastion of safety for 100 Thieves to be able to retreat to. 100 Thieves, however, do have control over the bottom side river because of that tempo change that you talked about, Broxah.
Yeah, and the question is if it was actually worth it for them to put down the Herald there, because now they're gonna have to face check 100 Thieves who, you know, have an Annie that is starting to get, you know, really low. They're starting to have a lot of damage with her level 11, with her Leandry. Here, 100 Thieves just have to make sure TSM doesn't get into the river. They need to hold their lines, need to hold their vision, and then Drake should be theirs.
I will say there are multiple times that we've seen Palafox's Aurelion Sol, or we've seen games like these where it's easy to retake control because they'll just back off when they see this guy's descent. When they see that icon, it's like, we don't really want to fight against that. We're not grouping at all. That's going to be the worst case scenario.
So here's one of the problems for 100 Thieves. Tenacity is your only man who can really face check because of his tankiness. His tankiness is all health. He has a Heart Steel, he has a Bomby Cinder. Aurelion Sol can melt through him as Closer is trapped in the pit. They fly out the Renata ulti over the wall, but it doesn't do a whole lot. And now Closer's forced to flash to disengage. Solo's gonna tank for a while. Tenacity eats some of the Breath of Light, and now he's retreating too. Both sides backing away. Both sides just trying to see if the other guy's gonna make a mistake. You're gonna see Solo wanting to retreat, but Closer jumps in on him before he can complete that recall. Solo, once again, trying to get back to the base. He does not have a teleport to rejoin. It will be a long walk. The rest of TSM is just trying to hold 100 Thieves at bay. Now, once again, Maple starting up the objective. Bugi's in the pit. TSM controlling it for now, but keep your eyes on Tenacity and Bjergsen. They're the ones who might be able to make this happen. There is no Renata ulti. Bugi jumps over the wall. The Drake is low. Now Bugi jumps back in with a blast cone, and that should be Drake for TSM.
Very smart, discipline from TSM side, especially from Bugi that's recognizing their only shot is a smite steal. So why not pop my head over the wall and blast cone right back into the pit? Well done there, while of course 100 Thieves side is able to at least get some gold.
And the problem is that 100 Thieves had the full control around Dragon. They could easily have fought earlier, but they just left mid entirely, let TSM walk in for free. Closer even ended up getting caught. They need to be ready. They need to be confident in their engage. And the moment TSM get near that river, they just have to all in.
Completely agree. In fact, that just reminds me of the very start of that fight. That just makes it so hard for 100 Thieves. Losing the Renata ulti in defense of Closer. It's like, okay, well, how do we start fights? Like, it's much harder now, so... Smart from 100 Thieves. This is the one thing that I do value about them, is just recognizing when it's not the fight. Tenacity recognizes the same thing, gets out of there. So, just playing it passively until they find an opening.
Well, TSM wanted to go after Tenacity there. You saw Bugi roaming down, and as soon as he saw Bugi on the ward, Tenacity pops the ulti to run because he knows, even if he is Sion, even if he does look tanky to most of the members of TSM, Aurelion's percent HP damage will absolutely shred him. He does not want to get caught and give away a freebie, but Aurelion continues to stack the Stardust. Observers, can we see how much he has? 203 right now. In general, as long as you're above 10 per minute, you're doing really well. That's exactly where he is.
And it's just easier once you get past laning phase to just continue to stack up, because then you look at jungle camps. It's much easier during fights when your Sky's Descend is just going to be proccing 5 Stardust apiece per player that it's hit. So it'll start to explode a little bit more, but that's already pretty scary.
Now we're getting into the phase where TSM has already taken 3 tier 1s and will slowly start working their way into the river, getting Baron control, perhaps looking for some tier 2s. But to do that, it's going to be a slow process, really. You usually have to do it step by step. So, step 1, get everyone out on the map. Get them out topside. You have Solo with TP. You're stronger than your opponent. 100 Thieves have no tempo and want to base. So walk into the river as soon as you can. Set up vision. Push into enemy jungle. They can potentially even look for the enemy blue buff as well. And once they have the control, they have a lot of options.
Level 10 Rod of Ages, or 10 stack Rod of Ages, I should say, that boosts Maple up to level 13. As soon as he takes the blue, he's going to hit level 14. So over the course of 30 seconds, Maple just went from level 12 to level 14 here on the Aurelion Sol. Actually has the Rylai's completed as well.
Love to see
He
it.
is on a massive power spike. If you're 100 Thieves, I don't know how you get anywhere near this guy.
Yeah, and once you start hitting 200, though they're looking for a pick on double,
Find the cleanse, but that's it.
there it is. It's going to make the next fight a little easier. So once Sejuani's ultimate's going to be back up, even better. Maple's looking for him now.
They're trying to make sure they don't let him escape with the ulti. Solo body blocked it, so Tenacity could not disengage, and now they're just going to have Maple try to stick to him here for the damage. They do a good job on Tenacity's part, at least interrupting the Breath of Light at first, but we're at the point where you can't interrupt it enough. Maple goes on a rampage, and Tenacity goes back to the spawn platform.
You know, there's good devs and there's bad devs in Sion.
Yeah.
I don't think the Bows would be particularly proud of this one, I have to admit. It was not the greatest timing. Sure, Bjergsen gets the tier 1 top lane eventually, but I don't really like seeing stuff like this. We need to be on the same page, you know. If this was pre-planned, if, you know, the entire 100 Thieves were ready to push on top side, get some vision, maybe threaten Baron. If it's a coordinated play, that's smart. We used to do that on most teams I played for. We used to call it like an int play.
Yeah.
The top lane just basically runs it down and everyone else rushes to the Baron.
Create space, right?
But here, they were kind of lucky getting that tier 1.
Yeah, not a boss approved play.
Exactly.
All right, unfortunately, a bad death for Tenacity. 1 minute until the next Drake spawns. 2,500 gold lead plus 1 Drake for the side of TSM. And everything keeps going their way. They also have this late game insurance plan of the Aurelion Sol. And W8D1 Jinx, their late game insurance plan is nowhere near paying dividends yet. He's still only on 1 completed item, working towards what I believe is the Infinity Edge second.
Yeah.
But he's still got a long, long way to go.
He can't be happy about taking this next fight. I feel like they just have to give it. But that's the problem you're in at this stage of the game. It's the worst Hex Sol to deal with, right? I mean, it's the worst Sol to deal with. It's Hex. So you want to fight for third, but you don't even have your second item yet, and you're the bulk of this team's way and win condition. So TSM actually looking for Baron instead.
Oh, wow. This is a very early Baron, but remember, early Barons with Aurelion Sol can be a pretty easy way to get yourself ahead of the game. Now they jump in, and again, they're looking to find somebody, but they only find the clone of Closer. TSM will be stopped from doing the Baron. 100 Thieves are happy with that. They don't really lose a whole lot except for Tenacity's teleport. TSM still looking to maybe fight a little bit more. Grand Entrance only finds Tenacity. TSM does not want to overcommit on the tanky Sion. Singularity from Aurelion Sol uses a zone control mechanism to keep everybody away. With Rylai's, it's very, very powerful, slowing everyone down, creating this massive circle that 100 Thieves just have to trudge through.
But take a look at this. That's Flash Rakan, that ulti down. They're just going to go for the fight.
Bugi's coming around from behind. Tenacity's stuck on the front line here, but Maple's really the only one that can kill him. Hostile takeover flies out, but the skies descend on 100 Thieves. TSM still separated from their own jungler. The Drake's going to be pulled out. Bugi wraps all the way around to join back up. TSM and 100 Thieves staring each other down. Some ultis spent on both sides. Who's going to make the first move here? Closer still has Cyclone. Bjergsen still has his ult. That is huge. Everybody on TSM, not named Solo, does not have an ulti to work with. Over the wall comes Bugi. Chime's ready to go too. Closer's getting locked up. He wants the damage on Turtle. He won't be able to find it. He doesn't get the reset. Turtle goes on a killing spree. And the Drake goes to TSM.
It is a little bit of a difficult situation with 100 Thieves in right now because they're never able to get the control around the Drake. They keep looking for the opportunities regardless, but it's just not working out for them. And I think at one point, if you don't have the control when you are behind, you need to do something else. You need to try to regain control on the other side because now, because TSM is in a better condition, they're just going to immediately start.
Okay!
Just sent it straight down the river. He teleported in, disrespecting 100 Thieves. But the Thieves were ready to respond instantly. Remember that Chime has no ulti. He tried to use it chasing after Bjergsen earlier, so they don't have the Rakan ult for a counterattack. TSM goes for the Baron. They get punished, and it's Solo who dies for it.
Yeah, still thinking about that last fight. TSM only really had Skies Descend without that many resources, ultis that were down, but still won out just because of superior positioning. Bugi actually coming in from the flank, making it a little harder for Xayah to actually fight, and Closer dying. That was the big one. he just did not recognize that Bugi was wrapping around the pit. So his death eventually just meant that TSM felt so much more confident that they can play towards the Baron next.
And the worst part is that if TSM instead, you know, looks to push out, get an early reset, they're going to be back first on the map before Closer is even available. They could have got the full top vision before looking for any of this, but now, because they rush it, sure, they have man advantage, but everything is pretty desperate. Solo TPs into a very difficult position. You can even say it right here. He's saying, guys, chill, calm down. We don't have to rush anything.
Well, he might be in trouble yet again now. 100 Thieves in the enemy jungle looking for TSM. They take 2 of them low, but they aren't going to grab any kills just yet. They're still trying to stick around and contest the red, but it's Busio into the stopwatch trying to stay alive. Now, DoubleLift just headshot Chime. 100 Thieves finally might have found a good fight. Solo's going to die next. Both kills on DoubleLift. This is what the doctor ordered for 100 Thieves.
The pressure's at the highest it's been all season, and you can tell that its pressure is getting to TSM. Solo, you can even see him telling his team to calm down. That's also referring to himself because, yes, he got picked out. But Chime's last 3 engages have just been blunders. So the first one, of course, that was the Wukong clone. Second one we saw that was no one in the bush. And then that one now makes it so much easier for 100 Thieves to come back into the game.
Please tell me someone is going to try to stop Sejuani from jumping in. I'm getting anxious watching this.
50-50, but it ends up going the way of 100 Thieves. The damage over the wall from Aurelion Sol, not enough to pick up any kills, so it's Baron plus a kill on the side for 100 Thieves. They're back in the gold lead.
For a moment I thought this was going to remind me of the solo queue game I played this morning, where we're like doing the Baron, enemy junglers on the other side of the wall, no one zones him away. He jumps in, wins the 50-50. The entire team types jungle cap and blames me. Like, I was getting some serious flashbacks right there. Luckily Closer won the 50-50 though, because that was a really questionable Baron take, I'm not gonna lie.
And just taking a look at this again, I just want to see Rakan's positioning because, yes, he did get chunked out much earlier, and he thought this was a perfect position with Busio, lower than 50% HP, and this was the angle. But they immediately focus down on him, and Chime goes down just like that, makes it that much easier for 100 Thieves.
And you can see TSM is very clearly cracking under the pressure here, because they've been in the driving seat the entire game, but sometimes, especially when there's so many emotions, drama, stress involved, like these teams, you know, they have everything on the line right now, and they know it. So it's just about taking the small victories and taking it slow. But sometimes, you know, you kind of get stuck in your own head, and you just want to finish sooner, you know. You're going to get to playoffs already.
There it is, lost in the sauce. And it feels like just off that last look, Closer's starting to feel it, Flowers.
Closer is in the zone, and 100 Thieves are in the lead after TSM has controlled the game for the past 20 minutes. They continue defending on the side of TSM. They're trying to keep these tier 2s standing. They don't want to allow 100 Thieves to snowball this Baron into a greater lead. Right now, it's still just kind of sitting on the money that you get from taking the objective itself. The biggest, most important thing is they're going to still have Baron win the next Drake spawn. That should be huge in stopping TSM from getting the soul, and 100 Thieves knows it.
This is something that Azael's talked about a lot, that he's the most upset about Aurelion Sol, is the fact that the wave clear, the minion wave, especially the Baron minion wave, where you should expect that it just goes straight into the turret, completely stopped out. TSM's able to burst it completely, just so hard to siege up against an Aurelion Sol that's standing guard.
Now it's going to be a little bit more difficult for TSM to actually contest this dragon, because sure, they're walking up, Aurelion's really strong, but they just wasted Sejuani ult.
Oh,
in the way! Tenacity.
They flash Maple in front of Tenacity to guarantee they're able to keep him there, and he can't just ult out. Turtle goes on a rampage. 100 Thieves frontline has died. Closer tries to go in for the counter engage, but he's going to get locked up. The Sky's descent to stop 100 Thieves' follow-up, but the fight is chaotic. They're still looking for a little more damage, and Solo drops. Bjergsen's so close to death, but the bailout might be able to bail him out after all. The stasis for Maple will not matter. 1,000 gold for Closer. 100 Thieves wins the fight.
A decisive fight and call by Closer takes the game by the reins. Like, the most important thing you think is, oh, Tenacity is down. You think they would lose. But if we look at that fight again, WildTurtle can't hit. He's completely separated from the fight. Just so we just, as we rewind a little bit, just see how it all started.
And once again, TSM, they're over-eager, they're just going crazy, they're not thinking about the next step. You see it here on the minimap. Solo has the TP to mid lane. Like, what are they gonna do? How are they gonna get out of there? They just get run over, and even though the Aurelion Sol was huge, they were so out of position. WildTurtle is struggling here on the side battling Sion. Like, there's just nothing they can do. They don't have damage to fight back.
He was zoned by both the Sion corpse and the Renata ulti. He could not join his team, so even with the huge advantage that they had right from the beginning, it was just a lost fight for TSM. So kind of insane to see a huge loss in morale for something that looked so good at the start to end up so poorly.
And Maple flashing in front of the Sion. They think, okay, if we bust the front line, now we have a 5v4 we can win. But Sion's dead body did as much work in that fight as Solo did, probably more. So it's not like 100 Thieves were even fighting from a disadvantage. And now they gotta be feeling good about their chances here in this game.
And that Captain Flowers is what we call a good death. The calculated death, the fake death, the one that sets up the team for success. That's what we need to see more of.
That's what they want to do more, and Solo just popped. That Ksante is not tanky enough to survive. DoubleLift now has Kraken Slayer, Infinity Edge, Lord Dominic's regards. Tanks are no longer tanks to this Jinx. It is a problem for the front line of TSM, and it's a problem that's not going to remedy itself anytime soon. Baron spawning in less than a minute and a half, and 100 Thieves have total control over the Rift. This is such a change from 10 minutes ago, where the game felt entirely opposite.
Yeah, it was just a series of blunders that happened towards the top side of the map, where TSM is making proper plays, has the comp that should be able to nail, I guess, 100 Thieves inside that coffin. Doesn't end up happening, and now they got to scramble. So off the last play, Maple was bot side because he knew that, hey, if something happens, if they go for top inhib turret, that he can be there for it with the TP. But he's now thinking towards the future. They actually are now starting to plaster wards around Baron, much like you, Flowers, recognizing that that's where the end game play is going to be.
And now, well, TSM is going to be late on the play. To be honest, I don't even know if it matters if they're first, because they've just kept giving up the control anyways. So TSM is going to be a little bit late. Actually, they might not be. 100 Thieves doesn't go immediately. They're taking their time, slowly setting up, grouping around mid lane. DoubleLift gets the red buff, and now both teams are going to be contesting this mid round.
Also, Elixir of Iron on Busio, going for this very temporary power spike for an investment of gold that supports don't have a lot of. This tells me that 100 Thieves is saying, next fight probably just wins the game. Make sure you're committed to it, buy whatever you can. Let's see it. DoubleLift just took the red buff, so the Jinx has maximum power, and the Baron has spawned. Notice that very small ward in the back of the Baron pit there, all the way up towards the top, trying to avoid any control wards that might be placed at the entrance to the pit itself. TSM's on the defense, and they know it. They're going to need a massive Aurelion Sol ulti, a massive Rakan engage if they want to be able to come out on top here. But Bugi just gets caught out. Chime goes over the wall, finds an initiation onto multiple targets. 1-for-1 trade, jungler for jungler. But where does it go from here? Tenacity and Solo still left as your frontliners. Everybody's just going to disengage after that.
But I would say that that's actually a win for TSM. 100 Thieves were setting up for a Baron, and they just needed to make it somewhat quick before it's now Sol that's going to be the fight. So TSM is able to delay it, are now playing towards Dragon, where it's their Hex Soul that's in play, and they have vision for it. So this is going to be something that, sure, doesn't turn out clean, but actually achieves what TSM wanted.
I think something that's really cool about this game is that if we look at the carry positions, mid and AD carry, it's stacked with veterans, and all of these veterans, they are pretty strong. And maybe Bjergsen being a slight exception, but let's not talk too much about that. Like, they're strong, they're ready to fight, they're not cracking under the pressure. All of them are fighting for their lives to bring their team to playoffs and show that they still got it after all these years.
Now we're setting up for Dragon. That's no Sion ulti, he had to use it to escape there, so that's going to be one loss that's happening. That I will say in the last team fight, you know, the enhanced ultimate for Aurelion Sol was used there, so it's going to be the weaker version, but that's what they're playing again.
So let me ask you this, Broxah, because these situations, to me, have always seemed like some of the most intense ones, where there's a Soul available with the Drake, the Baron is up. What do you normally prioritize? What are comms like during these moments where everything could just determine the fate of the entire game?
I think it's really going to come down to just getting the priority. Like, usually it's a little bit harder to just straight up force the Baron because it takes way longer to take it. If you get the mid prior, you might be able to sneak the Dragon with your AD carry. And we see both teams here, they're just fighting for their lives to get the mid prior, because if you get the push, you can do whatever you want.
Oh, DoubleLift just destroys Solo. Counterattack from Aurelion Sol isn't enough to get anybody back this time. That is huge for 100 Thieves. They know that Solo is not tanky enough to just step up so disrespectfully, and they immediately punish.
Great call from 100 there. Now you're in desperate situations if you are on TSM side. Dragon is up, but 100 Thieves is trying to force another fight. TSM is a little bit split here. That's what I'm concerned about.
Turtle could be in trouble. He's taken incredibly low, but he won't die yet. Tenacity gets him with the decimating smash as he dies. A 1-for-1 that 100 will take any day of the week. They kill off Aurelion Sol, and TSM has rumbled against 100 Thieves.
Would you call that a good death there, Broxah?
I would say so, yeah. That's a pretty decent death. If my Sion dies like this in solo queue, I would approve.
Yes, there we go.
I'm pretty happy. They get the Baron, they can get the Dragon. I'm like, DoubleLift is an absolute monster. Is probably about to delete absolutely everyone in team fights. TSM is not looking too hot right now. They're just simply not synced at all. Something is completely off with their coordination. And that is the main reason we see Solo being 0-6 as well. They need to make sure they're on the same page, because now they don't even have the advantage anymore. The next engage has to be clean or it's game over.
There it is. This is the maximum dragons allowed before Sol needs to be fought for. So the designers wanted to end this game now.
Let's see it. Once again, man, Solo just stepped up. And as soon as you get 1 CC on this comp, Annie can follow it up, Jinx can follow it up, Renata can follow it up if you have to.
And once again, we can see like Mabel is just not ready to hit. Sure, he gets the ult off, but all of a sudden the position is really off. TSM walks up so aggressively, even though one of their main frontliners is now gone. And it's just really tricky. Like, look at him. WildTurtle is on the side, Mabel is trying to join, Bugi is sitting a little bit, trying to, you know, have some fun with DoubleLift, but they're just not playing as a team.
Yeah, the fact that your first front line, as you mentioned, perished a little earlier. Sejuani is there thinking about zoning off a few of those players so DoubleLift couldn't hit, but it was still enough. It was still enough to get the job done. So you can see, exasperated. You didn't really have much energy there. It feels like this game is getting worse and worse, and TSM is losing it.
And that was Turtle's first death of the entire game. He was deathless up until 35 minutes in, and it feels so bad when you feel like you're personally having a good performance, and then that death, it just, that's a morale buster right there, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely, because, again, it's not like you can blame one person in particular for this going wrong. It's just a team effort. And the truth is, 100 Thieves, they are just a better team right now. They're so coordinated, they're always on point. They don't care if they have control or not. They're going to find a way to brute force it and make sure their carries can hit. And I think that's what it's going to come down to in this next fight, making sure that both Mabel and WildTurtle can actually hit, because otherwise, they're about to get steamrolled.
Aurelia's being popped there. Really a team punch, but a pick.
Look at that. Bjergsen caught out here. That seems to be the magic, the secret sauce for TSM. Find Bjergsen, blow him up, and then play from there. That's 45 seconds that he will not be on the Rift. TSM at least has a little breathing room. The Baron push stops for now.
Makes a lot of sense. Now I understand why the vision was placed as it was. The control ward that was hiding the 4 members of TSM, so they can make the decision if, hey, Bjergsen pushed a little too far, got him, and now it stops the whole momentum and push that 100 Thieves had there.
It's actually pretty nice of Bjergsen. He probably, you know, saw the cam as well, somehow magically, of WildTurtle looking sad. He wanted to cheer up his phone.
Buddy, yeah.
You know, just bringing positive vibes to everyone, making sure no one...
real bro.
Yeah,
What a good
making
guy.
sure no one's having a bad time. And for us, I mean, it's pretty great too. The Baron play is not going to happen. Soon there's going to be a big Drake fight, I imagine.
Oh, I love the Drake fight. The 3-3 Drake state means a massive power swing one way or the other, depending on who gets the soul. Still a 4,000 gold lead for 100 Thieves, so they're still feeling pretty good about where they are in the game. DoubleLift, I believe, should have his final item farmed up by the time we get to that Drake soul spawning. Over on the other side, WildTurtle sitting in the same position. You can see he's also got the Zeal, so both of these guys are going to be at maximum power here very soon. The difference being, DoubleLift has that range with the rockets on Jinx to contribute much more easily without being in as much danger.
Yeah, and I have to give a lot of credit to WildTurtle for this game. Of course, there was a lot of pressure really early on in this game with the 2 dives that happened bot side. And even though TSM did a great job buffing it and pushing him away, still was considerably behind in CS, so he was trying to essentially claw up. Doing quite well in team fights. There was only one fight that was just impossible for him, but felt like he had been playing quite well up until this point. It just feels like a difference in frontline where Sion, Wukong, and Renata is making it hard for him to do his job while Solo's getting picked.
611 Stardust on Maple. It is 40 minutes into the game. That dragon is so insanely farmed that if he can get firing time on not Tenacity and just get through everybody else, he'll delete them. Sky's Descend is also ready. 1 minute until Drake spawns. Man, this is a game that was guaranteed to be intense just because of the nature of the standings, the nature of the league. But now with this game state too, man, they got to be sweating this one.
Yeah, I mean, the situations in the LCS changes so frequently. The fact that CLG was able to win the last game that was also in that fight would have made it a lot easier if CLG were to lose for both of these teams. Now you're just recognizing this is the most important game in the season. Solo said it much earlier in that TSM content that they had. And, I mean, they're playing their hearts out right now.
And that's what you need to keep in mind as well, that these guys are ridiculously pressured. It's so easy to look in from the outside and, you know, say, oh, they could have done this or that. Yeah. But the truth is, these guys are, you know, playing to really showcase that they can make it to playoffs, that they can end this spring split on a high note.
Oh, the sweeper over the wall looking for closer, but TSM just walked into a meat grinder. DoubleLift is dominating, and WildTurtle has been found out on the flank. Tenacity and Closer going up against Turtle, and they'll bring him down. That might just be it, TSM. They thought they had the angle, they thought they got the drop on him, but DoubleLift said, hell no.
And all of a sudden, I think the Turtle is not so wild anymore. I would be pretty sad if I was in his position. We see it in this fight again. He's completely alone. He doesn't have any friends to play with. All of them just gonna leave him on his own little island. What is he gonna do? It doesn't matter that he has 7 kills. When the entire enemy team runs you down and you're a squishy Xayah, oh, it's not a fun time.
Yeah, and that angle that Bjergsen had over the wall, they did not see him, attributed to that huge burst that we saw into TSM, just made it so hard for the front line to be able to protect their carries. And now look at this position. It seems like a free Baron.
Oh, Maple wanted to go over the wall because he thought he was just going to get to kill Tenacity. Super Mega Death Rocket misses, so Maple lives, but 100 Thieves take the Baron. There was no contest. They've got the Hex Soul. I feel like our game-winning push is not too far away, my friends.
But that's what we fought before as well. When they had Baron, they were about to pressure. Sure, they didn't have Soul then, but it was kind of a similar situation. But here, we see it once again. Bugi goes in confidently and Closer. Closer is able to buy so much time, and all of a sudden, TSM just go too fast. They have no vision. They don't know where Bjergsen is. They don't know anything. And it's just the easiest fight of 100 Thieves' lives. Look at WildTurtle. The poor turtle here dying on his own little island.
Yeah. Unlucky for TSM. Closer's positioning, his play, his decision-making on Wukong, when he goes in, where he spins to, how he repositions, and when he does it with the clone, has all been immaculate this game. So much of the credit, I think, deserves to go to the jungler, even though DoubleLift has been popping off after he farmed up. He's the one doing the damage, but Closer's the one setting him up. It's what you said at the start of the game, Broxah. If DoubleLift says, help me out, help him out.
And he was helping. Not only that team fight where he was able to use clone properly, he used it topside as well to get both Sejuani ulti and Rakan ult. And then, of course, that game-winning fight after Sion dies. He comes in, initially gets CC'd, but he was able to get a huge team fight set up 400 Thieves. He's playing out of his mind. Not just this week, it's just the start, but last week as well.
It is worth pointing out that DoubleLift doesn't have any defensive items right now. He's just going 100% crit, full damage. Sure, he has a Bloodthirster, but if Maple and Bugi can land their ults on him, maybe Chime, you know, as well, just anyone engage in that Jinx. Sure, he has cleanse right now, but no flash available, so if he just slightly overextends, he's a free kill.
I will say quickly, the fact that the Bloodthirster shield at this stage of the game with Legends, Lifeline, and everything, and Overheal, you have so much HP that's basically a defensive ability.
But yeah, he's also playing against the very scary Aurelion Sol. This is the Aurelion Sol from, you know, our nightmares, I'm pretty sure. If this guy lands a clean ult, whew, people are gonna explode.
Well, 100 Thieves are looking to make this TSM's last stand. Tenacity approaches from the side. The Sion is huge. Look at the health bar on him. They can't get through the Gargoyle Stone Plate. Meanwhile, Solo and Bugi have to try to tank up on the side of TSM. Closer might finally get popped, but the Guardian Angel means he'll come back to life. He needs to try to escape back to the safety of his team. Minion Wave's gonna let him do it there with an Nimbus Strike. Now, they're focusing on the inhibitors. Mid has already fallen. Top has now fallen next. Chime trying to disengage, barely any HP remaining. Solo ain't have much left either, as Maple and Solo try to disengage. The re-engage from Chime won't hit anybody, and 100 Thieves is steamrolling towards the enemy Nexus. Now they back up, they don't want to give away anything for free. DoubleLift gets executed on the Singularity, he can't come back to life. Tenacity wants to use his dead body to try to pick up something else, but 100 Thieves can't end just yet.
That was huge, not just from WildTurtle, he chunked them by quite a bit, but look at the size of the Singularity. That is doing so much damage at this stage of the game.
This dragon is something else at this point for sure. But again, props to WildTurtle. He went big this fight. He walked up confidently, chunked all of them really low.
25% execute.
21.
That is-
21. It's 25
That's
to max health damage.
Yes.
20 per, it's nearly an Elder Drake all the time.
Yeah.
Absurd. Absolutely crazy. Let's keep an eye out for the Aurelion ult here. First of all, Tenacity goes in, buys a lot of time. Soon Closer will be able to follow. Renata ult comes in. It's so hard for TSM's carries to actually hit. But then the Aurelion ult explodes, buys a bit of time for them. Obviously, Wukong has the GA, Bjergsen faces, TP's back in. The pressure is on for real right now. I actually thought for a moment 100 Thieves were going to be able to end here because they're in such a good position. But somehow, TSM managed to find a way. Keep an eye on WildTurtle here. WildTurtle is about to walk up confidently and seal the deal here. So we see him walk up, hitting Tenacity. Chime is going to follow. All of a sudden, he finds a huge chunk on DoubleLift, and DoubleLift ends up dying to the turret. No, actually, he doesn't die yet. He dies just about.
But overall, it was the combination of Singularity and WildTurtle that was able to get the kill on towards DoubleLift, so it extends the game a little longer.
And hold on now, Bugi in trouble. He's gonna be bursted very low. They take him down. DoubleLift gets excited, and TSM's gotta be careful. They've still got the damage from Aurelion. Tenacity backs away. Solo's still here on the front line. Maple's gotta do all the work. He goes on a rampage. Now they're gonna wait for the passive to go away from Tenacity. Double kill back over to Maple. Wants to find some more. Can't get it. Maple under pressure. 100 Thieves get it done. They take out 4. They only lose 2, and they're gonna walk it into the base and an exposed Nexus.
There they are. They were going for DoubleLift so much in 100 Thieves, just trying to protect him, and he stays alive.
Huge win for 100 Thieves over TSM. They're going to move up in the standings. They're still looking to keep this playoff hope alive.
And here, we saw really impressive individual play from both teams, but when it mattered, when it came to the team fights, the objectives, 100 Thieves were always one step ahead. It didn't matter if they had control or not. They just walked up as a unit, engaged together, kited back together, and ultimately, DoubleLift was always able to hit, while WildTurtle and Maple, I don't think we saw a single fight where they could both actually play the game at the same time.
Yeah. From the TSM side, the focus has to be in that mid game, where they had tried to make engages on towards both Tenacity and Closer at different moments, and of course, lost a lot for that. 100 Thieves taking a bow for their much-needed win here.
I think it was a couple of things that were a big difference. The difference in top laners. Tenacity